Cyndi Lauper thinks those seeking to protect children are Nazis, more train derailments continue to occur, and the future of entertainment is indie. That and more on tonight's episode. Stay tuned. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and thank you for tuning in to another episode of Daily Nights. I am your host, Treasonous Truths. Joining me today is my co-host, Daddy Sins. Say hello, Daddy.
Yo, what's up, everyone's Daddy Sins in the house as always. I hope you're having a good fucking night. Don't be a sinner, and if you don't like what I say, go fuck yourself. So I hope you like that intro, Mike.
And, well, as you can tell, we are joined again by his second appearance. We have the LoRax here with us tonight. Say hello, Mr. LoRax.
What's up? It's me, your boy. I'm the LoRax. I speak to the trees. What's up?
And what do those trees speak back?
Oddly enough, Vietnamese. Never would have guessed.
Oh, shit.
I thought he who shits makes shit move. I didn't know that Seth Rogen was part of your crew, Frank. So.
Well, it sounds like you were trying to say something Confucius would say, but I don't think he was Vietnamese, my guy.
No. I was comparing him to being Vietnamese. I was comparing him to just being shit.
Oh, there's that.
You know, I didn't mention nothing about Gadrade or Jewish or anything. So.
Wait, what?
Fucking
they'll be like, that's racist. I'm like, yeah, because I said something about that.
No. You would be called anti-Semitic. There's a difference. Okay.
No, they don't know the difference.
Even though you said nothing.
They don't know the difference.
Oh man, especially when they're the ones who are pointing out like all the quote like things that they think are anti-Semitic, like, hey, goblins in Harry Potter look like Jewish people. It's like, wait a second. No one said that anywhere in the text. You're the one who drew that conclusion. What does that say about your perception there, buddy?
Right?
Then also,
but they're the ones working in a bank, though. Just kind of give that perspective.
You're not wrong.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know what else to say about that, but that's pretty. It's pretty there, pretty right there, I think.
They're just goblins. Let's move on. Okay, but. God damn it. As I said earlier, we have a pretty interesting day. It's a bit of a mixed bag of everything. We talked about TMNT last night and pretty much the Soylent Mayhem, as it's being called now, about Seth Rogen doing his race swapping just for clout, essentially. Or I don't even know if it was his decision ultimately, if not the studio. And he was just like, yeah, man, whatever. And it took a big
I mean, if he's headlining... If he was obviously headlining the entirety of the movie, obviously he's not making the entire movie because you need a ton of people to produce a movie. But if he's the main headliner, obviously he's going to get most of the backlash and the attention. Then the voice actors and actresses for that movie.
I mean, voice actors and actresses, there's no, like, you can't really fault them on that. That comes down to the studio making their decisions. So, we talked about it ad nauseum. You weren't here for it, LoRax, but what's your whole take on the whole race swapping thing when it comes to not just TMNT, but in general? Like, swapping certain characters for, like, that were traditionally of a certain race. It doesn't have to be white or black, just in general, for another one just for, like, the sake of clout instead of creating like a new original character?
Honestly, for the sake of the clout, I feel like is for the wrong reason. That's the whole thing. It's for me, it's for the wrong reasons because it should be done in a way that especially if you're producing something like a movie or whatever it is, right? It should be something that whatever character, like, right, whatever source material you're using to create said show or movie, right? Not to say that there's certain characters that can't be swapped, right, race-wise. Not saying it's not possible. But the whole thing is doing it for that reason, I think innately takes away from the actor or actress who is being swapped in the place of the original source material. Do you understand kind of what I'm saying?
Oh no, I understand what you're saying. I come from the camp of just create a new character. Like for instance, we'll take the new TMNT for instance, right? The people who are upset about April O'Neil's race swap aren't upset that there's a black character in a prominent role that is reserved usually for a Caucasian character, right? Either a ginger, as it were. The hashtag ginger side. Stop it. Um, what I've noticed that they're upset about is the fact that you're not creating a new character, and thus by doing so you're simply saying that you don't have confidence that the new character for the group that you're trying to represent, whether it be black, white, Asian, whoever, can't stand on, or any sort of identitarian definer, they can't stand on their own, so you have to give them the sloppy seconds, tokenization essentially.
Right.
And that winds up not only hurting the fandom as a whole, because the hardcore fans are like, what the fuck is this shit, right? And then the other people who you're trying to represent, they get insulted because of the fact that, the fuck, we don't deserve our own character, you're giving us the hand-me-downs? Like, what the fuck is up with that? That's where I come from.
Definitely agree. Because there's some characters that, if they should not be swapped, obviously, like I said, for reasons like that. So you're, in some circumstances, you're better off just kind of starting from the ground up with a character like that, because not only that, you can also create more. You can actually create kind of a better following in a way, I feel, especially with with levels of openness and things like that. When you're creating this character, right, you have a much more linear, or not so linear, path to follow. You know what I'm saying? So it's
Mm-hmm.
definitely a way to better way when you create the new character to really kind of open the pathways. Bring more people in that way, because everyone's just like, oh wow, look at this new character that appeared in something that is something that was very, very popular back in the day, or something that was
Yeah.
more popular now, because then people are going to be more inclined to be like, what's this new character about? And that's where I totally agree with you on that.
And I think there's a really good, I don't know if you ever watched it, guys, but you guys ever see the CW Arrow series? Like the early seasons, at least, before it became a little too Vampire Diaries.
I have not seen it.
I haven't.
So in the Arrow series, they actually introduced, a new character of color, right? If we're gonna stick to this, John Diggle, and he became so popular in the fandom, they actually brought him into the Green Arrow comic universe.
Wow.
Yeah, which just goes to show, if you actually wind up striking gold with a new unique character, you can actually bring them into the other forms of the property in which you're adapting from. So say if they created a new character for TMNT, right? And the character was a hit. Insert whatever, ethnicity you want, or identity, right? Whether it be sexual or whatever, right? In there, and that character's a huge hit, you can then inject that character into the comics, and then boom, it's a win-win for everyone, because the fandom gets to see that character in a live action form, and they get to see a new original character in the comics and see how that interacts with that world as well.
Old fans and new fans alike will definitely, with a character like that you quote unquote struck gold with, old fans and new fans alike are definitely going to appreciate it.
I was gonna say,
And
Mike, you kind of just hit on a good note that I think a lot of Hollywood and movie production companies should do, because that's an example of expanding on the story, because they introduce a new character. Like I said, like you said, you can make it whatever, whether it be male or female, or insert any race or culture background or religion, right? And you said it was
mm-hmm.
popular, and it went to the comics. So that's an example of expanding on the story, and that's what should be done more, if anything. If you want to adopt these insert IPs based off comics or books into live action television shows or movies.
And where do you stand on the whole, swapping of a traditional character of how they're perceived in the fandom to something completely different. Where do you stand on that, Daddy? I can't believe Daddy Sins. There we go. Daddy Sins. Okay.
I'm used to it.
Don't
It's
forget the
fine.
last one.
Yeah.
You're not the first person to call me. That's fine.
I'm also not the first guy to call you that either. So
That is true. That is still very true. I've only been called that for like the last 15 years, but yeah.
I will reiterate my question.
Yeah.
So, where do you stand on all that? Because while we talked about it quite a bit, we kind of divulged more into like the cultural Marxist aspect of everything going on, and not our own like personal stances and explaining where we stand on everything.
So, if you're adopting an IP for a live action television show or movie, my thing is respect the source material. You respect the
100%.
source material by making sure the characters are pretty much pretty much in some way can be identical to what you want to represent in a live action film or television show. Right? Because when you're reading this book, you're like, man, it would be awesome if I could see this just great gigantic battle scene going on. Right? And then you get the movie, and then it comes out, ends up being fantastic. An example would be Lord of the Rings. I literally just had to stop myself from saying the wrong title. I had to stop myself like 3 times from saying the wrong title of that movie.
Yeah,
the Two
Go
Towers.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which that was a phenomenal scene, by the way.
That's what I'm saying.
I
Yeah,
enjoyed
you
every
read that in the book, and now you envision that into a live action movie. It worked out really well. The first 3 Lord of the Rings movies are loved by hardcore and all fans of Lord of the Rings fandom as a whole.
Well, because
Right?
so far it's the best adaptation that
Yeah.
we've gotten. You know, granted, even Christopher Tolkien, the son of of J.R.R. Tolkien, he wasn't a fan of Peter Jackson. He had his own gripes with Peter Jackson's adaptations. But ultimately, the fandom, right? They're like, you know what? It could be a lot worse. They hit upon the core stuff. You know, yeah, they missed on some details like Tom Bombadil, but you know, at the end of the day, Jackson, we're glad you didn't do anything like ridiculous. What would happen most likely today? You know, like we see with the Magic set, race swapping Aragorn in the new Magic the Gathering Lord of the Rings set.
Yep. And I think I know I've been told before that people for some reason think that I have a problem with diversity or people of I not say pretty much diversity because that's what I say a lot. And it's not that I have a problem with diversity. I have a problem when you're trying to force diversity. If you're going to make something of especially of a culture or background, right? Not only respect the source material, but you should also respect history and culture as a whole entirely. Unless this is something like of new fantasy you're trying to make. Right? And entirely new. An example would be I think the Vikings Netflix show is a really bad example.
What?
The Vikings Netflix show. That wasn't really great.
What about it?
An example
Valhalla?
of yeah. As in
Valhalla Rising was garbage.
Yeah.
Like absolute garbage. To try to convince like, oh, a female South African Viking, which by the way was not true. That they literally substituted another ginger. So hashtag another casualty of gingercide.
You would have to people have to understand that there are people from all different aspects around the world. They either born or grew up in a culturally environment that they were born. Now, if you want to try to make your own fantasy world and say, well, we're going to say that insert that black people were saying from up in the high northern mountains where it's cold. Historically, that's not entirely true, right? But if you wanted to make your own fantasy world about it, I mean, no one's stopping you, right? But that is a criticism for that there is a criticism for people who do very details on critique works will criticize
Yeah.
about it.
So, what were you trying to say about the Viking series? Not the Netflix
Because
one,
as
but
an example of saying including like certain characters from different backgrounds, just for an example of like we keep talking about for clout, or trying to do for inclusion of diversity.
So so in the original Viking series, I have my gripes against the Viking series.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong, but the original Viking series, as far as I can remember, despite its historical inaccuracies, didn't do that. The show that did it was the spin-off Vikings Valhalla Rising, I think is what it was called.
Yeah,
Their second
I was
season.
referring to because
Yeah,
I've seen it
that
already. That's what I was. I didn't clarify,
yeah
but I'm referring to a Viking season's Valhalla because that's
yeah
why I started disliking it severely.
yeah. Well, because it's all for clout. There was no South African Viking queen in charge of Catacut. And the character they try to make redeemable, Leif's sister, right? If you actually look
Mm-hmm.
up her history, right, she was such a deplorable individual that her family disowned her entirely. And to this day, like they try not to recognize her as a part of their lineage because she did some pretty deplorable things. For those interested, I would recommend just reading a variety of different literature out there. I really recommend Seawolves. Fantastic book. Let me see if I can pull up the author's name. I think it's Dan something. Bear with me. Seawolves: A History of Vikings by Lars. Oh, I was even wrong. Lars Brownworth. Fantastic, like primer on if you're looking for Viking history. If you're looking to watch the Viking series by the History Channel, which is I think available on Amazon Prime, I really probably recommend not reading the book first if you just want to enjoy the show, because if you read this book, you'll see the historical inaccuracies. There are certain events that transpire with certain individuals that didn't occur in history. They occurred like they did in the history did it did transpire the way it did in history, but not with individuals. Like it wasn't Ragnar who pretended to be sick and dying so they could sack France. No, that was someone else. By that time, if I'm not mistaken, Ragnar was actually dead. And the character of Rollo, right, wasn't even Ragnar's brother in real life, for instance. He was literally born like 90 to 100 years after Ragnar was already gone. So they kind of did the typical Hollywood thing where they, to just for entertainment purposes, condense events and just streamline it. So, but enough about that.
Well, I think that's actually, I honestly, I think that's actually a really huge problem, especially when you're adapting IPs to the big movie screen. Is right, they're only taking parts that are so-called either the most quote popular parts, right, or the things or the parts of historical events that happen that are quote popular or trending or important, but then they forget to leave out they also then leave out the details that led up to these big historical accuracies that happened. Right?
Yeah, and
What was another example would be well, it's not really bad. It's a different kind of example, but it still falls under the same tree of it. I was gonna mention The Last of Us, but that's we'll get to that segment later if we get there. So
no, actually, no. By all means, talk about it now. No, talk about it now. We're on. Do it while the opportunity presents itself.
yeah. No, I think Frank, have you seen The Last of Us yet?
I have. I've watched up to the Left Behind episode. That's where I'm at currently. I finished that. I was watching that with my roommate, actually, and she is a huge fan of the games and a huge fan of the show also. She's obviously very much looking forward to season 2, just like I feel a bunch of people who are fans of it are as well. But it's a great show, and I definitely want to delve a little more into that also.
So I have a question. If you're a fan of the video game, how can you be a fan of the show? When the show cuts out a lot of a lot of major parts from the video game that are important to to the to the relationship, as in of a father and a technically stepdaughter, of that being Joel and Ellie, of their goal to get Ellie to the location so she can use her immunity to quote make a vaccine. Because if you're a fan of if granted, if you're a fan of the game, that's great. But I don't know how someone could be a fan of the game and then be a great big fan of the show when ever since episode 1, which was probably the first episode, was the only show that was pretty much reflecting the first prologue intro to the video game, minus his daughter Sarah's race swap. But the actress who played Sarah did a phenomenal job. That's right. That's right. I think if you can do it, if you still do a great job, I'm fine with that. But like always, since I have to point out these details because we have to be accurate. If we're talking about respecting the source material, I
Right.
point out things. It doesn't. I know people are gonna get offended saying, "No, you don't like this race, you don't like those people." No, I point it out because that's not how it was in the original game.
Right.
Irregardless if it was the same guy, Neil Cuckman, who made the game,
Neil
right?
Druckmann.
I understand that you were part of the development of the game, right? But there were so many things you cut out, and that was the big issue, and that's really the big issue of the show right now, because it started off so strong. I
Okay,
was
so
like,
let
man,
me let me kind of piece together a
blow
little bit.
out. Yeah.
Let me piece together just a little bit of what I was trying to say here. She, like my friend, she is very she's still very critical, mind you. But what I'm trying to say is that for a show, right, when let's say, for example, let's start towards the beginning, right? When we talked about how the events transpired throughout the game, right? A lot of those moments, right, those bonding moments that Joel and Ellie had throughout the game, I feel like people feel that there's a lot of that missing because the way the show was produced and made, right? That's not necessarily true, in the sense that a lot of those bonding moments, right, were created through action and combat sequences within the game. That kind of thing. Because it's kind of just like there's only so much of it, obviously, realistically, with anything, depending on the source material. There's only so much you can squeeze into something live action-esque that way. But I will say, for the most part, granted, there are parts that are either changed slightly or
Slightly is
relationships are modified in
a
some
very
way, shape, or
loose
form.
term.
Yeah,
Slight,
no,
it's a very
no,
loose
you're very
term.
right. But you know, I was gonna say like my ex-wife, but um, but
She too spoke Vietnamese at certain moments.
but like I said, like there are things that are missing, yes. But the thing is a lot of the
That's also
crucial.
slight. I had to sorry to cut you off. That's also slight because there's a lot of things missing. But go on.
I don't want to say the important part because I feel like it's all very, very prevalent to the whole entire story.
Oh, this is a no spoiler cast, by the way. We just say.
No, it's a spoiler. It's a
That's what I
spoiler
meant.
cast.
It's a
Like,
spoiler
yeah,
cast. You
full
can
on
say
spoilers are allowed. So
Yeah.
don't feel like you have to skirt around anything. Just say, spoiler. That's the
Okay.
policy for Neon Knights. So anyone who's like listening at this point understands that spoilers are abound, and if you are listening and a spoiler for a show or movie or book gets revealed, you have formally been warned long before.
You totally asked for it.
Exactly. Yeah.
But yeah, so like I said, with these relationships, right, and things, these certain events, I think just thus far, yes, the events have changed. They were changed, good most of them, right? But the important part is that there's still that same high level of emotion that's invested in all those obviously awkward and changed scenes. And the thing is too, a lot of the dialogue is right from it. A lot of the dialogue is straight from the game itself. There's some dialogue that is fucking super on point. Like, to the point where I was playing the game prior to watching one of the episodes, and I literally heard Bella Ramsey, playing Ellie, obviously, say exactly what she had said in the sequence of the game that I was currently going through at the time. So there are a ton of 100, like, fucking right on the fucking, like, nail on the head, man. There's a ton of that. There's a ton
so
of
as
that
someone
as well.
So someone who has played part of the first game and then never bothered to watch the series because the game just never did anything for me, right? I thought there were a lot of other games out there, like at least from a narrative standpoint, like the original Walking Dead season 1 from Telltale, I think told a better story or a same story that Last of Us told. What were those parts that were accurate? Because I heard episode 1 was like frighteningly, like almost verbatim accurate to the
It
game.
was very, very much as literally as close to, like, it's pretty much so close to the point that it feels like it was almost copyrighted, almost. You know what I'm saying?
That's
No,
fantastic.
but you know what I'm trying to
But
say, though. You know what I'm trying to say.
no, but that's fantastic because that sets a
Very,
precedent.
very much that way in the first episode. So with the first
And
episode being the way that it was, right? Like I said, there were certain events that were changed, right? So the fucking plane crash thing fucking never happened. But the thing is they utilize that as offhand for some insane reason. I can't remember exactly the sequence that happened in the game, but I know full well that the plane crash was never a thing. But the thing is that change in event, right, that they did for the show actually
It exacerbated the event. That's what it did.
right. It gave it the same emotional value. It gave it the same emotional strength, the intensity, all that. It gave all of that. Granted, it was obviously not exact to the way the prologue in the game, how it was, right? That's the thing. There are a ton of things that have changed throughout the show that have very similar emotional impact. Are very similar emotional impact. And that's the thing.
So what are those scenes? Because again, I haven't seen the show, but I do understand the game. So
for example, like later in the game, right, there's a scene where they are at the college. They're at the college before they locate the Fireflies. This is like, I guess, quote unquote, what would be like 2 episodes prior, give or take.
Well, isn't
right? Just to give a kind of a perspective of time.
If I'm not mistaken, that's the part of the game where they find out like the conclave that was at the university trying to develop some sort of cure or something was like got fucked over and they got overrun essentially, right? If I'm not mistaken. Am I correct? Wrong, right, wrong, guys. You guys have more experience with the game than I do now at this point. I'm trying to remember. It's been like years.
Sorry, I was waiting for Frank to say something. Ask the question again. Sorry, I was trying to read this.
So the part with the university,
yes.
That's the part where they go there because there were like rumors and such of like a cure being developed and that they would potentially have more information. And they get there and they quickly discover that the whole place is fucked. And that's where they have the spores. There's like that whole gas mask sequence there, right?
Yes. So that was actually that was episode. Technically, that was episode 6 of The Last of Us. The later half of episode 6, after he meets up with his brother, right when they go to the university, and the scene she for the first time, Ellie meets but sees monkeys for the first time, because obviously there was monkeys in the previous university, doing for studying monkeys for veterinarians and other stuff like that, right? So she these wild monkeys are running around. And that was the first location that they were told of the place where eventually the Fireflies would be for location. And it's great that you brought up that scene because, again, and I'm going to say this, my hugest gripe with the show, it is the lack of clickers. This was the same issue I had with the Resident Evil Netflix show. It was Resident Evil has just too much emotions between Wesker's 2 daughters, right? Too much and very little about Resident Evil. And that the scene in the university, you fight through a bunch of the clickers. And what makes me think is, as I told you yesterday, Mike, and we actually said multiple times, with
Mm-hmm.
Hollywood, with their money, resources, agents, people, right? Knowing people, like nepotism, all that. There is no reason that when you already have an established story, that you're telling me that you couldn't add or include more. Include more. You could have made it a longer season to only have 9 episodes. I don't believe it. I'm sorry. There's no excuse for it. You have the
So
source
my
material. There's If they were making something new, like we keep preaching about, like actually taking a fucking chance, I'd be like, okay, you know what? I get it. You're trying to take a chance. You seeing if it works out, seeing if the first season or the first movie works out, and then you might add more than if it turns out to be a great movie or show.
So my theory is, in LoRax, when I get done explaining this, please divulge with, like, go into it as well if you disagree, agree, or where you would diverge from such a thought. I think it's the fact that they realize that Pedro Pascal, Joel, is their big attraction. And they know, the gamers know, hey, by the way, if you're making every season like a game, Joel's out like what, a third of the way through the first season, and then you have to rely on flashback episodes, which means you're gonna have drop offs, like we're talking like drop offs of anywhere from like 50 to 66%
You're
of your
referring to The
audience.
Last of Us too, right?
Yes, yes, yes. That's what I'm
Oh
saying.
yeah.
So if that's what I'm saying, if you make every season a game, they're fucked,
Oh
right?
yeah.
Especially if the whole perception is Pedro Pascal. From what I understand from the cultural zeitgeist, Pedro Pascal is like the constant return for that show because people just love his performance as Joel.
He really does. He actually really does a great acting as Joel. He plays Joel really well,
So
right?
with that being so
Yep.
so to let me just go back to what I was so I can finish so LoRax can get in and you guys can go off as well because you two know more about the series than I do because I cut off like after one. So if that's the case, do you think that they are potentially, well, personally, I think that they are potentially dragging out and dragging their feet as much as possible because they know when they reach that critical point of no return, that's it. When Pascal is gone, their show is DOA or is reliant on flashback episodes, like I think what occurs in the game, right? Part two, not part two, but Last of Us 2, right? Is that what it's called? Or is it called part two?
It's called The Last of it's I should know. I have it right here. So Last of Us Part 2 is what it says in the
Okay,
game.
so
Last of Us Part
they
2.
know,
Yeah.
they know at Last of Us Part 2, Joel, when he's gone, they just have to rely on flashback scenes. So, what are your thoughts about that, both of you guys? Do you think that's why they're
I
dragging their feet?
I will I will say this because right now I don't even think they're dragging their feet. Because if they were dragging their feet, we would have more episodes than 9 episodes. Already, how the show is going, especially after the huge drop off of episode 3, people saying, "Oh, I didn't like well, it's because people saying, oh, they didn't like gays." No, you did nothing to further the story. It was a waste of a fucking episode. Because in the game, that was like a 2 minute sequence. Says, "Yeah, I had a previous partner, and that was it. He was an asshole, and he left." And that was it. Like, he was gay. But already, the Last of Us Part 2, the video game, has such a negative review. Mind you, it was a mechanically upgraded game, like I said before. Great, love it. Give me some updated mechanics from the first game. But from a story perspective, no, it was a huge, huge drop off. And I remember I told you, it got leaked almost 2 weeks in advance where the game came out that
Mm-hmm.
Joel died.
Yeah, but I
Right
also
in the
think that was the
beginning.
worst. Like Kevin Spacey's sexual ideology, orientation. I think that was kind of the worst kept secret in entertainment.
No one had an idea that
Really, because I
no.
was expecting him to get killed. I was like, not in the beginning. Granted, I didn't think he was going to get killed in the beginning. My thing was, and I don't remember if I spoke with you or someone about it or a few other people, but my theory was he was going to get killed, kind of Obi-Wan style, at the end of the second game.
That
But no,
I think
that did
I
not
mentioned
happen.
I said that like if he dies like say protecting himself from like protecting Ellie from a lot of clickers with his giant bloater, or he does like this final stand, last man thing, and he stays behind. I'll be like, dude, perfect send off for your character, beautiful, perfect. No, he literally dies right in the beginning of the game. Like we're talking like, oh, it's not even a third of a fourth. We're talking like maybe within say the first 10% or less of the game he immediately dies.
It was that, so
It was
like
that early.
I never played it. I just trying to remember from like when YouTubers
Yeah.
and like streamers were playing the game. It came off to me it was like a third of the game, but I guess I'm wrong on that part.
I'll tell you this: when you start the
Hmm.
game, you play as big old bitch Abby. You do. Mind
Yeah,
she's a brog ass bitch. She is not bitch, but she's a brog ass girl. She is.
yeah.
She's strong because she was. You play the game, you find out when she was part of the Marines and everything. She was weightlifting, so obviously she's gonna get big arms. That's normal. Well, that's typical when you're lifting weights, especially for a woman. You're gonna have big arms, so you're gonna have more masculine features. Not fucking trans, by the way, idiots out there.
No, no. You can look like Abby, but that takes years of training. And when I mean training, I mean like legit training where you are
Yeah,
eating the right foods and you are, optimizing your, again your training. Because I know some people, not going to say who, right? For their anonymity's sake, who can pull off the Abby look and it looks natural.
yeah.
So
No, if you play the game, there were certain flashback scenes of Abby who looked normal, as in she had a normal body weight, skinny for a girl her age, and then it took her, I think, about 3-4 years to get her big muscle tone and arms. Right, so there is some gameplay flashbacks. As soon as you
okay,
start The Last of Us 2, you start off right as Abby, and then
yeah.
you encounter and you meet Joel, and Joel helps Abby escape from some clickers. And you're like,
Hmm.
oh man, great job, Joel, thank you. And then, she thanks him and all that. And you get to this room, and then he gets jumped, and he gets jumped, and Ellie's there because Ellie's following because she doesn't know where Joel is, right? It's kind of starts off as that. There's some other beginning scenes I forgot to mention when they were at uh the townhouse place, and then Ellie was dancing with is her future girlfriend in the game, and someone calls it either gay or someone says fascist or something in the beginning, and then but it happens right in the beginning. Essentially, I'm digressing too much, but it happens right in the beginning that essentially Joel dies right in front of Abby. He's literally getting whacked by
Hmm.
a golf club or something, a giant stick in front of Ellie, while these two other guys are holding Ellie down, and the other two guys are holding Joel, and he's getting
No,
fucking
no, no, no,
whacked.
no. It's if I'm not mistaken, it's not Ellie. It's his brother. Isn't it his brother that's being held down?
No,
It's Ellie.
no, Ellie is also being held down from not interfering, but Joel is being held down, and then eventually he gets whacked and killed, mafia
S-
style by Abby.
Okay, so I'm misremembering it because I could have swore I remember it as Joel is being killed, but in front of his brother, and by the time Ellie gets there, um, she like sees a dying Joel, but by the time she gets there,
He
it's
might
too
have
late.
been, so I
And
might have missed that part. It might be. The only I do remember because I really I played the game and I didn't 100%, but I played it fully through just to enjoy mechanically because that
Mhm.
story was shit for me after he died. I was like, all right,
See,
I bought the game. Let me just see how it ends at least.
that
So
was the saving grace of the first one. I thought it was going to be the story, and that's why I tuned out because by the time the first one was done, Walking Dead Chapter One by Telltale was pretty much culminating, and I thought it did such a better job at telling that type of story than The Last of Us did. And The Last of Us didn't, at least for me, didn't do anything mechanically that was like, oh my god, this is fucking fantastic.
yeah, yeah. It was a very very base action game at the time. For the PS3 era. So maybe at the time that was like, you know, an upgrade of mechanics, from PlayStation 2 or Xbox. I don't know. You know?
I have to disagree because there were a plethora of
Well,
games
that's what I
that
said. I don't know. I don't.
yeah, there maybe because I tend to just play a bunch of other games, like whether it be PC or have played games like PC, Xbox, PlayStation, and so forth, that it just didn't come off as like important to me. And probably for people who just are like, don't play as many games because they just don't have the time to. At the time, I did. Now, not even close. I barely have enough time to play one game. The Last of Us mechanics were probably like, oh, okay, this is novelty. But LoRax,
Yes.
come on, like thoughts? Like,
So
what are your thoughts about this whole thing?
so let's just delve back into the um the Joel thing, okay? Because it's one of those things that I had ran into fairly recently. So I agree that Pedro Pascal gets whacked, the whole show is going to go to shit. I agree wholeheartedly.
Okay.
But the thing is what happens in that event? The fucked up part about the whole thing is that
Damn, that's
And I
crazy,
think,
Frank.
yeah, it left him speechless.
Technical issues, yeah, left him so speechless that he's like, I don't. He's like,
oh
I'm
shit.
so speechless.
Well, I don't know why I don't know why I keep doing that. But basically, what I'm saying is his two favorite people, right? Ellie and Tommy. The initial thing that triggers that when the WLF, which is Washington Liberation Front, those 6 or 7 people in that room, how it goes off is fucking Abby decides to play Mafia Woman, right? And blow his fucking kneecap off. Literally blows his whole fucking leg off with a shotgun. Not his whole leg. But basically,
I'm not laughing at that part. I'm laughing at the Mafia thing.
Yeah, no, because you hit it right on the fucking head, which is also what she does to him as well. So
Yeah.
then she proceeds to like somewhat torture him and blah blah blah. But
Didn't he like do something to her or
that
something?
shotgun goes off, Tommy immediately is held down and knocked the fuck.
I remember. You are right. Yes, Frank. Tommy was there. Now I'm starting to remember. Tommy was there. And did he die? Did he? I can't remember. I don't know if he died also at the beginning.
He did not. He did not.
But he just got whacked pretty
goes
hard.
on, Ellie and Dina go and follow Tommy pretty much. Because he leaves
to go
first.
follow him because he wants to go find Abby.
Right, exactly. So literally, she, after a certain point, when there's like the group starts to get disgruntled about the whole situation, they're like, we have him, let's be done. Or if you're going to take too long, we just got to fucking go. And she's like, no, it's not how it's going to go. So basically, Ellie gets in, and she's like, I'm going to kill you, bitch. Blah. As that happens, she's just like, let's get this over with. And then proceeds to Tiger Woods the shit out that motherfucker. So, with that being said, also her character design too, mind you, Abby's character design, which is why everybody thinks she looks like a man. She's actually a woman. She's actually a female wrestler. That's why her body looks the way that it does in the way they made the character design.
Nobody said that she was a man. She just has a
no. I know. I'm just more or less just clarifying that they used a very, very athletic woman as a character model for Abby.
Yeah.
So that's why everybody's just like, oh, she's like a man or whatever, or blah blah blah. Like it's nothing.
Now,
it's not like that at all. She was used. Her character model was used, or a very athletic female woman was used as her character model specifically. I'm not sure what the particular reason behind it was, but that's what it was. She was a very athletic woman. So I don't know where everybody's getting this idea about her being like trans or some shit. But it has nothing to do with that. It has everything to do with the fact that she's just a strong ass bitch.
So I think it stems from two. Like I don't offer any contention, and I know personally women who can pull off the Abby physique. Personally, I know women who can do it. Right, biological women, not the whole women plus Disney model subscription model, but
Yo.
but I mean actual women
So
who
they
can
aren't
pull
gonna
off
be fucking thicker than a bowl of oatmeal?
thick. Anyway, thicker than a milkshake from McDonald's if they ever get the machine working.
Yo.
So
Nah,
Hashtag
I mean
sponsor.
McFlurries, my guy. Thicker than McFlurries.
thicker than McFlurries. That'll be worse than the hurricane at DQ. Anyway, I personally know, to get to the point, I personally know women who could pull off the physique of Abby. What I offer a point of contention is I know what it takes to maintain that in a post-apocalyptic universe where resources are of like, are of a scarcity. I can't perceive her being that physique because of the universe that they live in, because it's a post-apocalyptic one. Not because it's impossible because of biology, but because, well, actually it is partially biology because of the scarcity of resources, but because of those scarcity of resources, I don't think she'd be able to maintain as big as a physique. I think she would be a lot more slender, still muscular, but leaner than what she is in the game.
Yeah, she looks like a linebacker, my guy.
Yeah, which means she has to be consuming like a certain amount of calories, a certain amount of protein,
Right.
and so forth to just maintain it, right? And then couple that with working out, which, okay, I could see, like, maybe if you're doing constant moving and strenuous activity, okay, I can see that being a possibility, right? But it's the scarcity of resources that deters me from the plausibility of it all.
So you are definitely right about certain things, because there's actually you hit on home on one thing that actually is technically true towards the end of the game, Last of Us 2. The reason, I guess, I can assume from the game's perspective that Abby was able to maintain her physical feature, because when you play the game part 2, there are
I didn't.
back. I said, well, yeah, sorry, I said that. Whoever
That's all
plays
good.
the game part 2, obviously there are flashback scenes. You play a younger Abby, right, with her friend Owen,
Oh,
and
yep.
they're part of the who's the militia group again, Frank?
WLF, the Washington
W.
Liberation Front.
She's part of the WLF. It's a big military group of buildings, so they have resources. They have this whole gym. There's soldiers that get trained and they eat. Obviously you're a soldier. You're the one that's gonna be fed and eaten the most because you're out there training and doing physical labor things. That's where I can see Abby maintains her
Physique.
big physical physique. Now, where it loses it was at the end of the game, where she gets captured by this new group. Right? You find out at the end,
The scars.
and
That's what they
yep,
are. Scars.
something like that. Yeah, the scars or something. And then when you play as Ellie again, and she leaves her girlfriend, right, to go find Abby. You find Abby at the end, who's been tortured and stuff, and then you kind of have like this little last battle scene, and Abby was tortured and left out on this beach and everything, I think for like weeks, and you see her physical feature change, obviously from not eating well, not physically working out, because she was being captured and tortured by this new group, which I don't even know if they're ever going to delve into that group.
They were cannibals, weren't they?
Some sort of no, so not that group. It was a new different group. They technically revealed at the end. So I'm like, that's why I'm like, are they gonna be in Last of Us 3? It's not even confirmed that they're making a game like that, right?
Yeah, I'm not too sure of. But what I
Yeah.
do know is that from my experience with the game thus far, they are very much a prevalent part of what happens throughout the middle of the game, because it does change the course for a lot of things that WLF does. That's also basically what happened with Joel, was the farthest basically that they've had to go outside of protecting their own base and stuff from the scars. So they are a very prominent group in the second game too, because of the impact and how much how much influence, because they're a religious faction. That's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
Couldn't remember what it was. They're a religious faction because they basically pray to this woman who during the onset, right, of the apocalyptic event with the cordyceps and all that, she was the one who did everything in her power to take care of anybody that was brought in, right? So that's where, because of how much work she had done over the years to protect and bring these people in, right? She herself is like a high-end religious figure. Her name's plastered everywhere. There's graffiti. There's notes, like, throughout the game. Like, there's notes, there's graffiti. Like, basically, empowering her image and imposing her image on her people, making her seem like she's some kind of, I don't want to
Like
say
a
godlike.
martyr. Like a martyr.
Well,
or
a martyr,
something.
you only become a martyr if you die. That's
Like a prophet.
Yeah.
yes,
Like
like
a prophet.
a prophetic being of some kind, right? Somebody's just like, oh, well, this is happening. I can save you. Blah blah blah, that kind of thing. So those two groups, the WLF and the Scars, are very. I'm not sure exactly what the name of the group is, but they call them Scars throughout the game, like when you listen to dialogue and shit. But very, very important group. When they bring up the whole season 2 thing, I'm not gonna say it's gonna like save it or nothing, because everybody loves Daddy Pedro, fucking between the Mandalorian and Game of Thrones and now fucking Last of Us, everybody loves Daddy Pedro.
Yeah,
He's
so
the
I
universal
don't.
stepdad.
Yeah,
I
the
don't
universal
recall-
stepdad. He is your glucose guardian.
So
Like, it
you're
does not
so
matter
you're
where you're at. He is your
so you're
glucose guardian.
saying if they ever make another DBZ live action movie, he has to play Piccolo.
Pretty much.
He has to. He's obligated at this point. He has
Yeah.
to play Piccolo.
He has to
He
play
does.
Piccolo. He has to, because he is the
Yeah.
glucose guardian of the entertainment industry.
So
Alright.
So correct me if I'm wrong, LoRax. Did you confirm whether you think or don't think that if when they get to the point where Joel dies, they're gonna have a drop off in their viewership or no?
I 100%.
You think that's gonna happen?
But the only thing is I will say though, that episode, I feel, will have.
And he's gone, folks. Okay, so that's the cliffhanger. Thank you for joining us for another episode of Daily Night. I'm
Sorry.
joking.
Slowly backing up. But I think, yes, there will be a drop off of viewership. But, which I'm hoping, if there are people who are like, who are genuinely going to give it a chance, right? And go all the way through it, being fans of the game or whatever, regardless. Or just being fans of Daddy Pedro and watching the rest of his show after his imminent demise. You know what I mean? So, I think it will drop off definitely. But where the action picks up is where I think it may not change the whole course of how the season itself goes or the viewership, but I think it will have a significant impact. Because the conflict between the WLF, which is basically the Fireflies of Washington, like Seattle, right? Seattle, that's what it is. So the basically the Fireflies of Seattle, Washington, right? Between them and the Scars, I think will be a crucial arc. While obviously you're gonna have Ellie's underlying, you're gonna obviously have a first-person perspective from Ellie the entire time, obviously, because she's still out on her mission of vengeance. Because nobody kills Daddy Pedro like that. You know what I mean? So there's obviously everything's going to be from her perspective. Obviously, she's the protagonist, right? But she's going to bear witness, I feel, to their interactions and utilize that to her advantage, which is pretty much what she did throughout the game for the most part.
So a question what I'll pose to both of you then, if that's the case. They're not afraid to change or divert from the source material. That's abundantly clear from what I hear from Daddy Sins and from what I hear about just from general people watching it on the internet or people, co-workers and so forth. So With that being said, and that in your mind, do you think that they might actually not kill off Joel, but maybe do some sort of soap opera, General Hospital, whatever type thing, where he gets beaten near to death and he's in a coma, and they still do an entire season or like a majority of a season with Ellie by herself, but rely on him to be flashbacks? So then when season 3 comes around, if there is a season 3 or season whatever, not even season 3, season whatever this happens, right? They can bring Pedro back. Do you think they will do that? Not that it's a good idea, but do you think they'll do that because they are self-aware that Pedro is the glue that is holding them together?
Being aware that Pedro is the glue that is holding it together is what I feel will make them make that mistake. And the reason why I say that is because of the profound, like, emotional impact that Joel's death has.
And he's gone. Okay,
you're so impactful that knocked him out.
Hold on. Hold your horse. hold your simmer, all right? So what I'm saying is that the profound impact of what happens with Joel's death and how many people it blatantly affects, it has to happen. It has to happen. Because the reason for that is that will be the driving force. Because even though, yes, let's say he's in a coma, right? And
yes,
he will be in Jackson with everybody else. The problem with that is not enough, realistically, knowing what kind of character Ellie is, that is not enough fuel in the fire. Believe it or not. It may sound kind of crazy, but that is not enough fuel in the fire for her to do what she is about to do.
Right, so there's not a much, like you're saying,
so it's
not a big motivator.
He will have to die, because not only that, it'll be a very important fucking plot point in the show, and like I said, the emotional impact is what's going to make that episode. Single-handedly is what will make that episode. It'll be the drama and the tense and the intensity and the like a thriller style fucking flow of energy throughout the show, right? In that episode, you're gonna have that high intensity moment when Ellie's on the run. It's going to get Joel. Something happened, right? You're gonna have that such high level of energy to come to a fucking insane drop off when that happens. And the thing is granted, it sounds bad when you say it's a drop off like that, but for people who have played the first one and then obviously went into the second one and experienced that part for themselves for the first time, which I did myself, and I was fucking glued to the screen, bro. I was glued to this fucking screen watching the character I had played for fucking 15 hours when I fucking finished the first game to watch him get blatantly murdered. It's fucking, your eyes will glue to the screen no matter how much you think you dislike the show or not.
So this is the nefarious part of them being Hollywood. Do you and Daddy Sins, please weigh in on this as well.
I have several things to say of what I think, what they could do and what I think they should do, in my opinion.
So I'll just add this one last part, and I'll let you guys have at it for the next 20 minutes that we have left, roughly, or 15 minutes that we have left. How pissed off would you be if they make you think, like they do one of those things where Ellie, I had to think of her name for a second. Ellie finds Joel bloodied, beaten. For all purposes, as far as we can see, he's dead. And they do the whole cut to black thing, credits roll, and then the next episode is her continuing, and they never address him dying, and they go throughout the entire season in which this happens as if he's dead, only to reveal at some later point that he's not dead.
Unfucking real. Black.
And what they do is and this is how I'm just doing this to point at the nefariousness of Hollywood. They do so because exactly what you said, Frank, or LoRax.
And that's the fucking thing. The gift. Fuck. Hollywood sucks. You should not do that. That's the thing. Yes. The only thing is honestly, Hollywood having all that money, right? Just like Daddy Sins had just said recently, right? Mm-hmm. Hollywood having all this fucking money, bro. They can put 8 fucking people in a goddamn room. They can put 8 people in a fucking room to stand around You know what I mean? To fulfill the fucking sequence fully. You know what I mean? Like, so they're obviously going to be witnesses. For her to show up for the aftermath is fucking bullshit. Because that's where that emotional, like I said, that fucking emotional fucking drop comes right after fucking female Tiger Woods drops the golf club. That's where it'll fucking drop off, and it'll be so fucking uh sticking to the source material will be a very ideal thing to do. And not only for that, for the sake of that episode, it'll do exactly what it's intended, and it will make people cry, and I can guarantee you that. Because I almost did.
I'll say this: I had it spoiled for myself, and I almost didn't buy the game,
I
but because I committed to the game, I committed to it, and I wanted to see it, and because I personally, I don't like watching streamers. It's not that; it's just not my thing. I would prefer to experience the game for myself, regardless if it was deemed good or bad, to get my personal intake on it. So that's why I pretty much continue to get the game to see what's going on. Because like I said, it was leaked on the internet at least 2 weeks prior to the game actually being released, and it caused a huge it went viral and it caused a huge blow. But
oh
there's actually three things I wanted to say that I didn't
So
mean to say.
I hate to do this. I'm going to interrupt you just one last time to clarify my stance on Last of Us. I never played the second one because I found the mechanics lacking. Not because I watched a streamer or anything. I actually pinned in on a streamer for Joel's death, and that was it, just to see what was going on and see if any of the mechanics had changed at all. And I didn't see a monumental shift in the mechanics.
It was a very minor change. That's it.
So since it wasn't, from what I observed, it was not different from what I experienced personally from the first game. I was like, fuck this garbage. I'm going to just play something else that's more respectful of my time. But anyway, go ahead.
So there's a couple of points I wanted to hit upon, especially about 3 points now. This is going to be kind of a long tangent because I think of what...
You have 15 minutes, good sir.
Well, yes. Of what the show could have done and what they should do going forward. Because after episode 3, pretty much when they changed that second episode of the HBO show Last of Us, right? And then we had the huge drop-off of episode 3, right? A lot of the community's concerns was the Last of Us 2 game. Now remember, Last of Us 1, game length-wise, if you just played the main story, it's 14-hour gameplay. You play a Last of Us 2, it's minimum 24 hours to complete. It's 9. You talk about 9 episodes for the first game, where 2 episodes, where 1 episode 3 was not needed. You could have done that in a fucking 10-minute flashback, for all I care, and then continued on because you missed so many good parts with interactions with Joel and the clickers. And then episode 7 was a flashback scene of Ellie with her friend, which was technically DLC that came out after the game's first initial release.
And that episode's
right?
named after the DLC also.
Yeah, that episode 7 was about the night that changed everything, where she got bit, and that's how she found out that she was immune. So you're talking about 2 episodes in the 9 season. I mean, no, sorry, in one season, 9 in 2 episodes out of 9 episodes that were unnecessary. You could have used this episode to actually add more clickers in the show, or more interaction with Joel Elliott with clickers. Obviously, the episode 9 being this Sunday, we're gonna get some obviously clicker action. They're not gonna leave you off like the later half of the Walking Dead seasons did, right? They're not gonna leave you like that. Obviously, there's gonna be some big climactic battle with some clickers, and maybe we'll have a bloater again, hopefully, right? But what The Last of Us 2, I think what they're gonna do to try to, to soften the blow, they're not gonna give us like they're not gonna give us a first episode 2. I don't think personally, where Joel just gets immediately whacked. If anything, well, I think what they should have done, which actually adds depth to the story itself, which a show should be able to do, is add add more depth to the game by adding more stuff that was in the game to the show to grow the story was if they know this is going to be an emotional death, it's going to be hard for them even directing. It's going to be hard for people to watch, right? I think that's going to happen in the later half of the season because we're going to probably get because if you play the second game, you get flashback. You play interact. Sorry for interruption. You play the second game, you play the second game, right? And you put throughout the game parts of you're playing Ellie, right? You do encounter some flashback scenes because remember the first game and the second game are 3 years apart. So there are some flashbacks for you playing that in that 3 years apart. So Ellie I think is about 14 until she's 17 when you start the second game. All right, so they're probably going to include some of those flashback scenes very early on in the first couple episodes. If this is going to be Last of Us Part 2, we're going to get it. We're going to get a season 2. 9 episodes is not going to be enough. It's going to have to be we're going to need more episodes. The game is a lot longer. There's so much more interactions. New type of infections, right? Than clickers and bloaters. Especially when you play Abby, that one scene in the downstairs hospital. You know what I'm talking about, Frank?
Yeah.
That scene, that shit was fucking awesome playing. I will admit that was an awesome fight
My
scene.
first interaction with the new infected was crazy, by the way.
Yeah. There's so much. So I think if anything, what my idea, in my opinion, what I think they should do or they might do is we're gonna get a first couple episodes of just flashbacks and the scenes up into, and then I think we're gonna potentially get a mid-season finale of that scene where Abby whacks Joel. Now I think what HBO could have do or should have done in the future, right? Because the whole biggest part of Joel's character was in the premise of the game. A lot of people in the Fireflies, people who know Joel, they're scared of his character because he's a very ruthless and mean. He's a bad character. You're talking about in 20 years, he did a lot of terrible shit to survive, and he was known for that. People were afraid of him, right? And he's very cold hearted. Like it's only Ellie who made him like kind of like not soft in a bad way, but kind of more
soften him up a little bit.
Soften him up a bit, right, to help him from the loss of his daughter Sarah. If anything, honestly, instead of giving us just what we got this Last of Us, what if proposed idea, right? If we got literally a prequel to Last of Us and it was about the 20 years of a younger Joel interaction. This is all new stuff. It could be new characters. You can give me white, black characters, gingers, Asian, Hispanics. Give us a whole bunch of new characters, right?
This is
male, females. Yeah, I'm just as an idea if they wanted to do that, right?
This is the point of contention I'll offer for that.
Yeah.
Prequels, especially if they're involving characters that are part of like a mainline series, always suck because you already know that no matter what danger Joel gets into or any other character that's in Last of Us Part 1, they are going to live. And they're going to survive. And the excuse of, it is the journey that... No. Any sense of danger that gets removed from the journey makes the journey completely superfluous.
That was entirely. The Rogue One issue, right?
Rogue One, the prequel series. No one cared about like Obi-Wan and Anakin. Okay, yeah, we saw the fight. That was cool, but that's all spectacle. Okay, we know what happens to Amidala. We know Luke and Leia are born. We know Obi-Wan goes into hiding. We know Anakin becomes Darth Vader, and so forth. What people really enjoyed were like the Clone Wars series, and they liked the episodes that weren't focused on so much Kenobi and Anakin. They're more focused on the characters we didn't know what happened to them. Characters that we never saw in the films because they either died in the Clone Wars or they died during Order 66, but we just never knew about it because they just, there's only so many Jedi they can show on screen in a feature-length film. So that's my only my contention with the prequels. No, I personally fucking hate them.
Oh yeah, no, I get it. Yeah, I don't blame you. I'm just saying I wouldn't be. Not that I would offer. That would be like my idea, but I wouldn't be changing my stance on it. I'm not changing my stance on it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were to do something like that, or if that was their first idea. Because, like you said, we know what happens. If they gave us that first, it would have been interesting to see. But then, like you said, it falls under the category of the prequel Star Wars and Rogue One. It's like, Joel dies in The Last of Us 2. So a lot of that is kind of just it didn't add anything to the original story. It was essentially just filler-esque, right?
Yeah.
It was essentially just filler-esque. So right now the main concern with the show is still performing. It's still popular, right? It's honestly, despite that it's been getting far away. And Mike, I gotta slam under the bus like always. It's done at least a far better job than the Netflix Resident Evil show did.
Dude, you could polish a turd and say it's a live action remake of like fucking I don't know, Call of Duty, and they'll be like, man, it's fucking superb over the Resident Evil fucking Netflix show.
Which they're gonna do that too, live action Call of Duty.
I'm not surprised. The best thing they could do for that is get Michael Bay to direct it.
Yeah,
you might as well at this point.
And
honestly,
they would have had
Michael Bay to direct
They're
it.
gonna have Henry Cavill as Soap.
Yeah, that was funny.
That'd be great. Who would you get to cast as Ghost?
That's a good question because it doesn't matter.
Not wrong.
You literally never see his face ever, anyway.
No, it
so
would have to be
really
a voice.
Don't matter.
No,
just
William Dafoe's voice.
William Dafoe.
Yeah.
Willem Dafoe.
No, it's terrible. That's terrible. I love Willem Dafoe. Don't get me wrong. I do. But
get Lance Reddick.
I'm still recovering from the fucking Death Note voiceover that Willem Dafoe did. I'm still recovering from that.
That was the only good thing about that movie.
I know. That's the thing. That was the only good thing about it. But the sheer fact that like, not the fact that he did it. I think when he did it, he did good. I'll give him that. But the sheer fact that it fucking was the only good thing about it is what blows my mind about it. Because I feel like, granted, it is, like I said, a live action adaptation, right? We just mentioned that briefly. Fucking, I'm not going to say it could have been better, because live action adaptations are not usually that great.
That's putting it slightly frank. Come on.
So
now.
you're telling me that bootleg? So you're telling me bootleg Aaron Taylor Johnson didn't really do it for you?
Oh no, he did. But
I think we can all safely agree and say that, for the fuck's sake, Hollywood and all entertainment pop culture media over there, please stop trying to make live adaptations of animes. Seriously,
they did it.
Stop.
They did it with Rurouni Kenshin, by the way.
I get it, but
they made 4 movies, mind you.
These are
very
you
long.
Serious?
Yeah, dude, I watched all 4 of them. It was great.
Are they good or?
Oh, this is the Japanese version. Like, we're talking about like actual Japanese actors and actresses, right?
Like, is it good? I didn't hear. I think he cut out. I think
it
he
was
died.
so good that it cut out again.
It was so good I cut out.
It's like opening of the Ark of the Covenant in Indiana Jones.
I enjoyed the first movie and the last movie because there's 4 of them. There's 4 of them, which was crazy to me because I didn't even know those motherfuckers existed, right? Because I was on Netflix fucking off one day, right? Because I was like in my hotel room and I was bored as shit. So I was just like, oh, Rurouni Kenshin, the beginning. And I'm like, word. So I'm just like, all right. So I watch it. It's actually kind of dope. I do enjoy it, actually. But the second and third movies were just a little bit of filler, because it was introducing all the characters that eventually Kenshin Himura runs into, like, obviously throughout the show. Like, if you've seen the show, So, like, obviously there's, like, confrontations with, like, when Kenshin adds more people to his party and then he helps them deal with their issues, like that kind of thing. There's plenty of that in the second and third movie. The fourth movie, which is pretty much when he fights, like, his master or some shit. So, but that fight scene's pretty fucking bomb. Not gonna lie. Because one of the first scenes in the first movie was him killing like 12 people, like with his feet and a sword he picked up off a dead body.
And he's called Batosai the manslave for a reason.
Exactly.
He's
It's
slaying
like
them cheeks.
it's like John Wick is like the American Batosai.
Yeah,
Like, you know what I mean? Like, it's literally like that. It's like fucking John Wick in like the Edo period. Or the feudal era, rather. Sorry.
John Wick is the American Rurouni Kenshin.
Yo, for real. He is the manslayer, bro. Yo, I'm talking in my hotel room, and somebody just walked by, and I said, "Batosai, the manslayer." She's like, "Yeah, I'm the manslayer." And I'm like, "I don't know who you are, but you sound hot." No, I'm just kidding.
So it takes place during the Meiji era. The
Meiji era, so. Right? Yeah. But yeah, so like with that being said, right? It's just, to me, it's just really funny. Like, for live action adaptations, I thought it was pretty decent. I thought it was pretty good. I just enjoy it because I like Japanese martial arts movies, or martial arts movies in general. So I genuinely enjoy them. So like, it was just funny to say that John Wick is the American Batosai. Because he can kill he killed a dude with a pen, or 3 dudes with a pen.
A fucking pencil.
Or pencil, that's what it was.
Peter Stormare, he killed a guy with a fucking pencil. Who does that?
Or it's like fantastic. That scene from fucking The Dark Knight Rises, or The Dark Knight, when fucking when Joker makes, he's like, "You want to see this disappear?" And then he like slams the dude's head into it.
Ta-da! Yeah, it's so fucking great.
It's so good.
But unfortunately, we are out of time, gentlemen. As the midnight hour looms for us, that is it for tonight's daily episode. Wow, Daily Nights episode. I've been your host, Treasonous Truths. Joining me today has been my co-host, Daddy Sins.
Have a good night, everyone. I hope you enjoyed my fucking rant on The Last of Us. The last rant will be next week, as we talk about the last episode. And don't be a sinner. And remember, if you don't like what I say, that's probably too fucking bad.
And also joining us again is the LoRax.
Have a good night, y'all. Be safe. But, like I said before, I'm the LoRax. I speak to the trees, but if they speak back, stop doing drugs.
Wait, hold on. Test. What are they saying back to you?
Actually, it's something nice. Oh, wait. Hold on. They say fuck off.
With that being said, if you enjoyed listening to tonight's episode, be sure to follow us on Twitter at Neon Nights FM, Instagram Neon Nights Productions, and on our own YouTube page, Neon Nights Productions as well. With that being said as well, thank you for tuning into Daily Nights, and stay golden, folks.